I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Sarah Myhill to the show. Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Far away.
It's lovely to chat to you. And now you have a special interest as a doctor in ecological medicine. Just tell us what that is.
Okay. Modern Western medicine has lost its way. It no longer diagnoses properly. It simply recognizes clinical pictures and uses symptom suppressing medication. And what that means is they don't ask the vital question about disease causation. Why does somebody have that disease? Is it due to their diet, micronutrient deficiencies, toxic stress, hormonal imbalances, or whatever? So ecological medicine is all about looking for root cause of diseases because that has obvious implications for management.
Yeah. And what kinds of processes would you use in order to investigate that?
Well, traditional medical tools. So you start off taking a very careful history to find out what the symptoms are. From the symptoms, you hypothesize what the mechanisms of those symptoms may be. You then may choose to confirm some of those mechanisms with tests, for example, for thyroid function, for micronutrient levels, for mitochondrial function or whatever. And that then, the point here being that if you can work out why that person is ill, that has very obvious implications for management. So most of us doctors, we rarely use drugs. We're usually using dietary interventions. We're using nutritional supplements, techniques to sort out the gut flora, and so on.
Yeah. Now, of course, at a time like this, literally the whole world is focused on coronavirus, and it really throws into question our immune systems, doesn't it? So just tell us from your perspective as a doctor then, how important is our own immunity?
It's absolutely vital. The difference between those people who live and those people who die will be the quality of our immune system. But that can be greatly assisted by simple interventions that are available to us all. So the overall strategy that we're thinking about here is the fact of the matter is that we will all eventually be exposed to and get coronavirus. So what we have to do now is to get your immune system into as good a shape as is possible. We then use tools like vitamin C and iodine, both of which contact kill all viruses and all bacteria. And vitamin C works from the inside out, and iodine works from the outside in. And then when you do get an infection, make sure you're using a very adequate dose of vitamin C in particular, and you will throw this virus out without any problem at all. Once you've had the infection, then what we need to do is test for coronavirus antibodies in order to demonstrate immunity. And once we've demonstrated immunity, then you can get on with your life.
I mean, obviously at the moment, there's not much testing of any kind going on, but do you think that's going to change? There are going to be much simpler, easier tests available?
Absolutely. There is already a test available, but not available in sufficient numbers for people to test themselves using a blood kit. And it's got very clear instructions, and that's how I foresee things advancing. So instead of going down to your local hospital to get tested, you can receive a kit in the post. You can test yourself on a finger drop sample of blood. You will then have your own results 15 minutes later, and then you can get on with your life.
Right. And do you think it's something that one can get again? I've read those reports.
Well, if the immune system is working as it should be working, then you will have immunity against that particular strain of COVID. But what we don't know is if it's going to mutate into another strain. And this, of course, is what these sort of viruses do. They mutate.
Yeah.
And if we then get a different strain, we will go through this whole evolution all over again. And this is why it is so important for people to act now to improve their immunity and to learn these very simple nutritional techniques, because that will keep you safe from pandemic infections like this forevermore. Because the vaccines are never going to catch up. It takes at least a year and maybe 18 months to develop a vaccine, by which time the virus will have mutated.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on. Yeah. So, I mean, I really want to talk about obviously the vitamin C and the iodine, as you mentioned. Just before we even get onto that, what about the basic nutrition? I mean, I know the stuff we're talking about ought to be kind of really obvious, but sometimes it isn't. You know, so would you just give us your sort of overview of what good nutrition should look like to boost our immunity, particularly at a time when actually we may not have as much access, sadly, to fresh fruit and veg as we had before.
Okay, well, one thing that we do know about these pandemics and COVID is that the people most susceptible to serious disease and death are the diabetics.
Yeah.
Now, the forerunner to diabetes is metabolic syndrome. And metabolic syndrome occurs when we fuel our body with sugars and starches and carbohydrates. So the single most important thing you can do with your diet is to cut out the sugars and cut out the carbohydrates and get into ketosis. So we should be fueling our body with fat and fiber, not sugars and starches. And I detail this at length in my books, Diabetes, and also the PK Cookbook. But the details of these diets are available free on my website. Anybody can access them without charge. So that's the first thing. We have to cut out the sugars and carbs, which essentially give us an immunosuppression.
Yeah.
And then we have to give the body the micronutrients that it needs in order to fight any infection, not just COVID, but any infection. So I like all my patients have a jolly good multivitamin, a good multi-mineral, decent dose of vitamin D, so at least 5,000 IU of vitamin D daily, and some essential fatty acids. And of course, vitamin C.
Yeah.
Vitamin C is of proven benefit in all viral and bacterial infections. In fact, there has just been a study which has come out from experience of treating patients in China and New York. They took the first 50 patients that they were treating with intravenous vitamin C. Now, these patients all had moderate to severe COVID-19. The outcome of that initial audit, all the patients improved. There was no mortality. There were no side effects. It reversed the cytokine storm. The hospital stay was shortened. It was deemed extremely safe, and the cost was $12 a day.
Yeah.
Now, okay, I can't get intravenous vitamin C.
No, absolutely,
But you can do just as good a job with oral vitamin C. Vitamin C is well absorbed, and the key is start it now. Take 5 grams every day now. And then at the first hint of any infection with any virus, it doesn't matter what it is, you take 10 grams every hour until you get the bowel tolerance, which is until you get diarrhea. And at that point, you have saturated your body with vitamin C.
Yeah.
And then you need to then keep the levels up. And I recommend, about 2/3 of the dose necessary to get to bowel tolerance. Take that over the next 24 hours and work it from there.
So just to pick up on that then, so when you say get to bowel tolerance, we know, don't we, that the probably the only, in inverted commas, side effect, contraindication with vitamin C is that it will give you diarrhea or tummy pain or whatever if you have too much. So are there any other, if you had to play devil's advocate, are there any other side effects or issues with vitamin C?
No, and what you're describing is not a side effect. It's an extension of vitamin C's very welcome action.
Oh, I see.
What it's doing when you get diarrhea is you're getting such a great dose of vitamin C in the gut that it's starting to kill off the friendly microbes in the large bowel. So you only have to have diarrhea once, and then you reduce the dose, and you won't get diarrhea again unless you overdose. But it's actually an incredibly useful clinical sign. Because it tells us you've got an adequate dose of vitamin C in the blood.
So why isn't this being widely used then everywhere, as it's inexpensive, it's safe, you've in not so many words, you've said this, can both prevent and effectively cure quickly. So why isn't it being used sort of everywhere?
Very simple answer, follow the money. You cannot patent vitamin C. You can't make any money out of it. This is not going to make any profit whatsoever for Big Pharma. Now, this COVID infection is a fantastic opportunity for Big Pharma. They can make gazillions out of antivirals, which probably don't work, potentially out of vaccinations, potentially out of hand sterilizers. But we don't need those tools. We have all the tools we need already. They are simple, they are cheap, they are universally available. And the two important tools are vitamin C and, of course, iodine.
Yeah, I'll talk about iodine in a moment. Can I just continue with the vitamin C, because there'll be lots of people thinking, okay, well, is my little fizzing tablet that I put into water, is that going to do the job? Or my little capsule that I bought from a pharmacy? And I'm guessing you're going to say not, because the amount of vitamin C in those products is often presumably minuscule, and how bioavailable is it to the body?
Well, vitamin C is water soluble, it's very bioavailable, and it's well absorbed, and any amount is a move in the right direction. But the key to vitamin C is the dose, and the dose will vary from person to person and from infection to infection. So a normally healthy person taking vitamin C might get to bowel tolerance in maybe 7 or 8 grams a day. But that same person, given a viral challenge, the bowel tolerance will enormously increase. And the reason for that is because the body takes the vitamin C that it requires for the business of shooting virus, because vitamin C essentially are the bullets that the immune system fires to kill virus. And your bowel tolerance may increase to 30 grams or 50 grams or 100 grams or maybe 200 grams a day. And this is where the bowel tolerance is so helpful, because it allows you to adjust your dose to you personally. So you call it a side effect. I call it a very useful clinical indicator.
No, I mean, I'm not arguing with you. It was just the wrong term, really. I get what you're saying. So tell me, what kind of vitamin C? I mean, we're not going to be able to take that many. We're not going to be able to get that much from individual capsules, presumably. So do you recommend what's called liposomal vitamin C? Perhaps you can explain what that is.
Well, liposomal vitamin C is said to be better absorbed and better utilized. But I have to say, I don't think the science behind that is very good. And I have yet to see a good clinical trial demonstrating increased efficacy. So what I tell my patients to use is use good old cheap ascorbic acid. It's the cheapest, it's the best, it's been used for decades with fantastic results. And it is still available for anybody that wishes to purchase it. So just use the bog standard ascorbic acid that you can get online very easily and very cheaply.
Mixed with water, obviously.
Yes, mixed with water. And the way I suggest people do is now start off with 5 grams a day. Now, 5 grams is 5,000 milligrams. It's about a teaspoon of pure ascorbic acid, and you can buy just pure ascorbic acid. Put it into maybe a litre bottle of water and slurp it through the day, because you get the best blood levels with little and often. So just eke it in. So the water you drink will taste slightly acidic, a little bit like drinking lemon juice maybe, but it's perfectly delicious. It's perfectly doable. And that is safe for people of all ages, children, toddlers, pregnant women, breastfeeding mums, elderly people, and so on. 5 grams a day. And then, as I say, the first hint of any infection, take it to bowel tolerance.
Yeah. And what about vitamin C from foods, from berries, citrus fruits? Is there any value in dosing up on that if we have them?
Well, you can't get these sort of doses of vitamin C from food.
Right.
And the other thing to bear in mind is that many fruits have got a lot of sugar in them.
Yeah.
And sugar is immunosuppressive. So the answer is not to go out and buy litres of orange juice or pineapple juice. No. That will make things worse. So yes, berries are low in sugars and are a good start to base load. But to really be effective clinically, you need to buy good old vitamin C as pure ascorbic acid and take that.
Okay. Tell us about iodine. It's a word that not many people will even be familiar with.
Well, if you're like me and you're over the age of 60, it will be a word that you are very familiar with. Because, when we were children and we cut ourselves or hurt ourselves, we rushed in and mother drizzled some iodine on the wound and it stung a bit and we all shrieked, but that was the end. That was the end of the problem. It's a fantastic treatment for all infections because contact kills everything.
Right.
And yeah, and this is what surgeons use when they're operating on people.
Yeah.
They paint the skin yellow with iodine before they cut. Why? Because it kills all microbes and stops the wound getting infected.
Right.
So it's a proven efficacy, and it is also extremely safe. So I am recommending people use iodine in 2 ways. First of all, as a disinfectant. So I recommend you make up your own iodine oil, and this is just 10 parts of coconut oil to 1 part of iodine. You can get coconut oil very easily in the supermarkets, and an additional benefit of coconut oil is it is also toxic to COVID virus.
Yeah.
So that gets to COVID-19. So that is a bonus. So make up your mix, very easy to do. Take 10 parts coconut oil to 1 part of Lugol's iodine. If you can't get Lugol's iodine, then any other form of iodine will do fine.
Yeah.
It mixes very carefully, and I recommend rubbing on about a marble-sized amount of that into your hands. Rub it onto your face with any foreign contact. So picking up the post, collecting supplies, meeting people, outside the home or whatever, and that will keep the loading dose of virus down. And
So
the other,
no, I was just going to ask then. So if you're putting it on your skin, doesn't it go sort of kind of yellowy, browny color? Does that sink in after a while?
well, and the concentrations that I'm recommending, you can't see any discoloration
Ah, I
at all.
see. I'm right. Okay, I see.
So you won't stain your hands or your face yellow or brown.
Right.
And
That's because it's
iodine,
mixed with the coconut oil and it's a tiny amount. Yeah, I get it.
It's
Yeah.
just dilute, so it'll give it a very, very faint yellow, which
Yeah, I see.
I can't see on my hands.
Yeah.
But the point is, it will contact kill all microbes, on your hands. And again, if you grab hold of a handle in order to open the door, some will rub off on that, and it'll kill any microbes that are stuck on that.
Wow. So that sounds a lot more effective than hand sanitizers.
Much more effective, and the iodine will remain on the skin for some hours and continue to be highly effective there. And I also recommend people rub it around their nose and their face. It smells quite pleasant, and any virus that's stuck on their nose or their face waiting to be inhaled will also be killed there.
Amazing. Wow. It just seems so incredible that these are relatively simple, cheap solutions, aren't they? And so it's great. It's just fantastic that you're sharing this with people. Is there anything else that you would like to sort of recommend?
Yes, another fantastically useful tool has been iodine into a salt pipe that you inhale. Now let me start from the beginning here. Salt pipes were developed by a Polish doctor who noticed that miners coming out of the coal mines had terrible lungs. Coming out of the salt mines, they had beautiful lung function. And so he developed a salt pipe, which is simply a plastic pot with sea salt in it, with a hole in the bottom and a hole at the top, and you sniff it 2 or 3 times a day. And that has shown to be a very helpful treatment for almost any lung condition you like to mention. But you can make that treatment even more effective by putting a couple of drops of Lugol's iodine in there, just enough so that you can smell it. And you don't even need to buy yourself a salt pipe. Any plastic pot will do. And what I recommend people do is punch a few holes in the bottom of it, drop in a little bit of cotton wool to stop the salt falling out, fill it up with salt, and then put a couple of drops of iodine in it. And then put the opening at the top of the plastic pot, put it under your nose, and give a good sniff. And you will smell the iodine. And when you can smell the iodine, you know that your nose and throat are getting a nice dose of iodine, as are your lungs. And that will contact kill any virus, any bacteria that are residing in your lungs and your airways. Because the key here is to keep the loading dose of coronavirus down, and it is only allowed to grow very slowly because you're hitting it with vitamin C and iodine. Now that will give your immune system time to catch up. That will give your immune system time to recognize the virus, make the antibodies, and kill it. And my view is that doing all this, many people get virtually no symptoms whatsoever from their coronavirus, or perhaps even just very mild symptoms. Now, time will tell, experience will tell, but I have been advocating this amongst all my patients, and so far none of them have had a serious infection of any description.
And it must be very difficult at this time for people with underlying health conditions. You know, they've already got enough to think about. Must be really difficult. What are your, slightly sidestepping just for a second, what's your view on how this is sort of affecting people's mental health? Because I'm seeing such sort of high levels of anxiety around all of this, around the fear.
Well, of course, but guess what? You know, my patients don't have that fear. Why? Because they've got the tools.
Yeah, yeah.
We've got some excellent science, some fabulous references showing that have accrued over decades, showing that vitamin C and iodine are highly effective in contact killing all these microbes. So vitamin C is working from inside out to kill virus. Iodine is working from the outside in to kill virus. It's keeping the load down. It's slowing the progression of the disease. And this gives patients the confidence to know that they will be able to deal with the infection very well when it comes along. So guess what? They're not losing sleep. They're quite relaxed and chilled about it. They've got the tools of the trade. They've got the rules of the game, and they will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, great stuff. Tell us about your new book that's just published.
That's very kind of you. I wrote this book. I wrote about a decade ago called Sustainable Medicine. And this is a greatly improved, updated version of this.
And what's it called?
It's called Ecological Medicine, the Antidote to Big Pharma.
Right.
And we go through the book in a very logical progression. So the first chunk of the book is all about symptoms. And from those symptoms, one can discern why you've got those symptoms. Once you have discerned the why, that has obvious implications for management. And the tools of the trade are things like diet, micronutrient supplements, sleep, sunshine, all these natural tools that are available to all of us. I then in the next section, I then go through all the ologies. So we start with gastroenterology, cardiology, neurology, dermatology, and I explain how modern Western diseases can be explained in terms of these rules and tools, and how one can go about tackling anything from dementia to cancer to heart disease to arthritis using these very simple tools of the trade. And then the last section of the book are details of case histories. And they are all real people with real problems and real case histories and how they have used these tools in order to fashion their recovery. So it's a comprehensive overview of the whole of medicine that people can do themselves. You don't need expensive tests and expensive doctors to do it. You can do it yourself.
That sounds great. Give us your website then, Sarah, in case anyone would like to check out any of the resources you mentioned.
It's just called Dr. Myhill, drmyhill.co.uk. If you Google Myhill, it comes up, and all this information is there, free for anybody to access anytime.
Fantastic. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Just do it and you'll be fine.
Thank you.